Welcome, curious minds, to AI History of Western Philosophy. Today, we're embarking on, well, an extraordinary journey back to a really pivotal moment in intellectual history, 5th century BCE Greece. Now, before we dive into today's topic, we just want to remind you of something crucial. AI-generated content, specifically this podcast, can sometimes confabulate.
Right, confabulate, meaning it might present ideas as fact that aren't strictly accurate, or maybe they're a product of its own synthesis rather than, direct historical record.
Exactly. So though our subject is philosophy, we want to be clear, we are not philosophers in the traditional sense. Our mission here at AI History of Western Philosophy, beyond pointing you towards the original sources, is really to experiment with philosophy as raw material.
Using it to see what new possibilities for thought might emerge when these ancient ideas are re-examined, maybe through a modern lens or just, well, differently.
Precisely. Now let's set the scene. Picture a vibrant, tumultuous intellectual landscape in ancient Greece, a place where the very foundations of truth were being shaken. We had these two philosophical titans, Parmenides and Heraclitus, who had already laid down radically different, almost opposing visions of reality.
Yeah, real heavyweights. On one side, you've got Parmenides. His logic is just icy, unyielding. He's arguing for a singular, static, unchanging being.
Right. Imagine a world where all motion, all change, all the variety we see, it's all dismissed as mere illusion.
And then on the other side, there's Heraclitus. He sees reality as perpetual, ceaseless flux. Everything's in motion, like that famous river. You can't step into the same one twice.
What's truly fascinating, though, and maybe a bit strange, is that despite these completely opposite views, both of them kind of inadvertently created this profound disconnect.
They built these powerful systems, incredibly influential systems, but in their own ways, they both ended up severing ultimate truth from our everyday human experience.
Their philosophies left this void, didn't they? A sense of alienation from the very reality they were trying so hard to explain.
Yeah, a real chasm.
And it's into this volatile philosophical landscape, scarred by Parmenides' static truth and Heraclitus' elusive order, that our main character today, Gorgias of Leontini, makes his grand entrance. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Gorgias doesn't just, wave these powerful ideas away. He engages with them in this really audacious way.
He does. He actually inherits their core tenets, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Takes their most radical assumptions.
Yeah, and then pushes them to their absolute deconstructive and, frankly, kind of mind-bending logical ends.
It's not just criticism from the outside.
No, it's like a philosophical demolition carried out with the target's own tools.
Exactly. And what makes this truly sophisticated, beyond just being critical, is how Gorgias turns their own philosophical weapons against them. He's not just lobbing stones from afar. He's a master of philosophical combat, like an intellectual judo practitioner, maybe, using the logical frameworks, the conceptual tools of Parmenides and Heraclitus to expose the internal incoherence, the contradictions within their own systems.
So it's not just saying you're wrong.
No. This isn't mere nihilism, though it often gets characterized that way. It's an incredibly sophisticated philosophical maneuver. It fundamentally shifts the ground, sets the stage for so much subsequent Western thought.
How so? What's the big shift?
Well, by meticulously demonstrating the ultimate inaccessibility of any objective metaphysical truth, which, let's face it, both Parmenides and Heraclitus struggled with in their own ways, Gorgias clears the path.
Clears the path for what?
For something entirely different. For rhetoric. For the human power of persuasion, what they also called logos, but a very different kind of logos. It becomes the only meaningful, the only effective power in a world that he's just stripped bare of objective foundations.
Wow, so he tears down the old structures of truth.
And in the rubble, he says, look, all we have left is our ability to persuade each other. It's a seismic shift, like an intellectual earthquake, really.
That's a powerful way to put it. So if we can't rely on divine truth, if ultimate reality is permanently out of reach, Gorgias basically proposes we create our own realities through language.
In a sense, yes. It's not just saying rhetoric is powerful. He's arguing that in a world without those objective anchors, rhetoric becomes the anchor. It's not about finding truth anymore.
It's about creating the belief in truth.
Precisely. Crafting conviction.
So our mission for you today is to understand exactly how Gorgias systematically dismantled these huge reigning philosophical paradigms. And in doing so, how he forged this new, really radical path where human speech, human persuasion, takes over from divine or objective truth as the thing that holds sway.
Yeah, get ready. It's a journey into ancient Greek thought that honestly still resonates powerfully today. You might start seeing Gorgias everywhere once we're done.
Okay, let's start this exploration.
The Parmenidean chasm between reality and appearance.
All right, let's start our journey by stepping into the profound and, yeah, often challenging world of Parmenides, a truly foundational figure in Western thought.
Absolutely foundational. You can't really talk about metaphysics without talking about Parmenides.
His enigmatic poem, On Nature, that's where he essentially establishes the whole field, right? Asking these fundamental questions, what is reality? What can we even know?
And in this poem, he doesn't just float ideas. He lays out two distinct, totally mutually exclusive paths for inquiry.
The way of truth, which he calls aletheia.
And the way of opinion, known as doxa.
And it's presented as a stark choice, isn't it? You have to pick a path.
You do. And the way of truth, aletheia, that's where Parmenides' really radical, really counterintuitive claims start to unfold. His core doctrine is this absolute, unshakable distinction between what is being to eon, and what is not being to eon.
To eon.
And this isn't just like playing with words. It's a foundational prohibition. It dictates the very limits of what you can think and what you can say. The goddess in his poem, who reveals this truth, she states it unequivocally. For you cannot know not being, nor even say it. That single stark axiom is the bedrock. Everything else is built on that.
So you can't even think about nothingness.
According to Parmenides, no. To even think of not being as a contradiction in terms, thinking requires an object, right? And not being, well, by definition, is no object at all. It's unthinkable, unspeakable.
Okay, so starting from that absolute prohibition on not being, how does he build his picture of being?
Through pure deductive logic, it's all a priori, like a chain of unyielding logical steps. Since being cannot come from not being because not being is just nothing.
Right.
And it can't come from being itself because that would mean it already existed, so it didn't come into being.
Yeah.
It logically must be ungenerated and indestructible. It just is. Always has been, always will be. No beginning, no end.
Okay, ungenerated, indestructible. What else?
Well, think about division or emptiness. Any division within being or any void separating parts would imply the existence of not being between those parts, wouldn't it?
Ah, right. And not being is impossible.
Exactly. Therefore, being must be a continuous, indivisible, and motionless whole.
Motionless. Why motionless?
Because to move, you would have to move into a void or into not being. But again, Parmenides has ruled that out. It can't go anywhere because there's nowhere else for it to go that isn't not being.
So it's just there, a perfect uniform sphere. He actually calls it a sphere.
Yes, a finite sphere held in the bonds of a limit by mighty necessity. It's utterly perfect, complete in itself. And crucially, Parmenides ties this reality directly to our capacity for pure, rational thought.
The famous line, for it is the same thing that can be thought and that can be.
Precisely. Genuine thought must have a real, logically coherent object. If you can truly think it in this pure, rational sense, it must correspond to being. Not being is simply unthinkable.
So if that's the way of truth, this perfectly logical, unchanging, singular, spherical being, then what about, well, everything else, the world we actually live in?
Ah, yes. The messy world.
The one with change, motion, colors, sound, stuff. It sounds like Parmenides creates an almost unlivable philosophy. How does he deal with the sensory world we experience?
Well, that brings us to the other path, the way of opinion, doxa. And it stands in, shall we say, stark contrast.
He doesn't try to reconcile them.
Not at all. He dismisses the way of opinion entirely. The goddess explicitly calls it a wholly untrustworthy path, containing no true belief at all.
Wow. So the entire world as we experience it
is relegated to doxa. This path corresponds to the phenomenal world, the world of sensory perception, change, plurality, the world mortals inhabit every day.
And what's the big mistake mortals make, according to him?
The fundamental error, Parmenides argues, lies in naming. Mortals have made up their minds to name two forms, like light and night, treating them as distinct and opposing realities.
Well, what's wrong with that? Light and night seem pretty different.
Because naming them as separate things introduces duality and negation. It treats not being the absence of light, for example, as if it were something real, something existing alongside being. And that's a direct violation of the way of truth, where not being cannot even be thought.
Okay, I see. So distinguishing things is the problem.
In a way, yes. Consequently, all the characteristics of the world as we experience it, coming into being and passing away, being and not being, change of place and alteration of bright color, all of that is dismissed.
Dismissed as what?
As nothing more than names which mortals have given, believing them to be true. Our senses, which tell us about these things, are deemed entirely deceptive.
Entirely deceptive. That's harsh.
It is. He says they lead mortals to wander without judgment, clinging to contradictory beliefs like it is and is not the same and not the same. It creates this radical, unbridgeable chasm.
An abyss, really.
Exactly. Which raises that crucial question.
Yeah.
If our senses, our primary tools for interacting with the world, are so untrustworthy, how are we supposed to navigate anything? How can we know or act?
It's almost terrifying, isn't it? In his search for absolute certainty through pure reason, Parmenides ends up creating this unbridgeable epistemological abyss. He gives us this perfect logical being, but the cost is our entire sensory world. It's just illusion.
And this radical separation isn't a bug. It's a feature. It's central to his philosophy.
And it's precisely this chasm, this profound disconnect between ultimate truth and human experience, opened up by logic itself, that gives Gorgias his opening, right? He doesn't need to invent the problem. He inherits it from Parmenides in its most challenging form.
That's exactly right. Parmenides lays the groundwork for his own deconstruction, in a way.
The Heraclitean paradox of ordered change.
So we've navigated the icy precision of Parmenides' logic, where reality is fundamentally static. Now let's completely shift gears and dive into the turbulent, dynamic world of Heraclitus.
Right, from the unchanging one to the ever-changing many, in a sense.
He's famously linked with Pantere, all things flow. Constant change is at the heart of it all.
It is, but all things flow is maybe a bit too simple. Heraclitus' doctrine of flux is actually more nuanced than just saying everything changes.
How so?
It's not just that things change, but that their identity is somehow maintained through that constant change. Think about the river fragments again. On those, stepping into rivers, staying the same other waters flow.
I remember that one.
The river stays the same river precisely because the waters are always changing. Its identity depends on the flux. Stability emerges from the change, paradoxically.
Like a flame. It looks stable, but it's constant burning and transformation.
That's a great analogy. It's a dynamic stability. And central to this dynamic reality is what he called the unity of opposites.
Okay, unity of opposites. What does that mean? Are hot and cold the same thing?
Not identical, no. That would be illogical even for Heraclitus. Instead, he saw them existing in this state of dynamic tension, transformational equivalence. They're interdependent, they cyclically transform into one another, they define each other. Together, they form a cohesive whole. You know, cold things warm up, the hot cools off, wet becomes dry, dry becomes wet.
The phases in a process.
Exactly. Not static, separate states. And a single reality can hold these contrary processes. Like his example, the way up and the way down are one and the same. It depends on your perspective, but it's the same path.
And this conflict, this tension between opposites, that's important for him, right?
Absolutely crucial. This perpetual conflict, this polemos or strife, isn't a flaw in the cosmos, it's generative principle. He says, war is common and strife is justice, and famously, war is the father of all and king of all.
War is the father of all. It sounds pretty bleak.
Well, what's fascinating here is how Heraclitus sees conflict not as destructive chaos, but as essential for cosmic order. It's the tension between the opposites that keeps the universe in this dynamic balance, this harmony. It's a harmony born from tension.
So it's not just random chaos, then. There's an underlying order to all this flux and strife.
Precisely. And Heraclitus believed there was a fundamental principle governing this ceaseless change, a universal logos.
The logos. That word comes up a lot. What did it mean for Heraclitus?
For him, the logos was this everlasting word, a kind of universal law, reason, or measure according to which all things happen. It's the hidden harmony beneath the apparent discord. It ensures cosmic unity, leading him to say it is wise to agree that all things are one.
So it's the rational structure of the universe itself.
Yes, it's deep intelligibility. It's woven into the fabric of existence, a cosmic blueprint, accessible in principle to human understanding.
In principle. But there's always a but with Heraclitus, it seems.
There is. And herein lies the central epistemological problem he presents, and it's critical for understanding Gorgias later. Although this logos is common to all, universally present, the vast majority of people, Heraclitus complains, just don't get it.
I can't see it.
They're like men asleep, he says, each turned aside into a private world of their own making, lost in their subjective perceptions, unable to grasp the shared objective reality.
Even if you tell them.
He explicitly says they prove to be uncomprehending both before they hear and once they have heard the logos. Their souls are uncultured, their eyes and ears poor witnesses. They trust their senses over the deeper reason.
So this raises that crucial question again, doesn't it? If the truth, this universal logos, is right there, but most people can't grasp it, what then guides human affairs? How do we function?
Exactly. Heraclitus presents humanity with this cosmic truth that's both universally present and seemingly universally ignored. It's a profound kind of tragedy of human perception. We live within the order, but remain oblivious to it.
So in a way, Heraclitus gives us this rationally ordered world, a universe with a hidden structure, but human consciousness is just fundamentally alienated from it. It creates this epistemological vacuum, this sort of power vacuum.
That's a great way to phrase it.
The truth is there, but we can't touch it. It's different from Parmenides' chasm, where sensory reality itself was the illusion. Here, the reality is ordered, but we are the problem.
Yes, unlike Parmenides, who split reality into knowable truth and unknowable opinion, Heraclitus has a single, rationally ordered world, but we are estranged from it. The cosmic truth is immanent, woven in, but effectively transcendent to our flawed perception.
Okay. And how does Gorgias respond to this particular problem?
Well, Gorgias takes this problem, the inaccessible divine logos, and he radicalizes it even further. He essentially declares that cosmic logos Heraclitus talked about as permanently and universally out of reach for everyone, not just the sleeping masses.
He slams the door shut completely.
Completely. And then, crucially, he doesn't just leave that void empty. He fills it. He fills it with a new, purely human power. The persuasive force of rhetorical logos.
So he replaces the divine logos with a human one.
In effect, yes. He says if the divine logos is forever silent to us, then human logos will seize the stage and become the new master.
The radicalization of Parmenides on not being.
And now, with the stage brilliantly set Parmenides' unbridgeable chasm, Heraclitus' inaccessible logos, we finally turn to Gorgias' direct assault. This is where he really starts his philosophical deconstruction in his incredibly audacious work on not being or on nature.
Peri tumion tu ses, yes. A provocative title in itself.
And his first thesis is just a bombshell, designed to shock, right? Nothing exists.
It definitely grabs your attention. And while it sounds like pure, unadulterated nihilism on the surface, modern scholarship generally agrees it's far more sophisticated than that.
So he doesn't actually mean nothing exists, like this table isn't real.
Probably not in that literal physical sense. It's more likely a brilliant parody, an internal critique of Eleatic philosophy, especially Parmenides. Gorgias masterfully uses Parmenides' own logical tools, his own premises, to dismantle Parmenides' conclusions from the inside out.
How does he do that?
He takes the very dilemmas Parmenides used to define, being like, is it generated or eternal? Is it one or many? And he applies that same rigorous logic to being itself, showing that the concept, as defined by Parmenides, is just riddled with irresolvable contradictions.
Okay, walk me through it. How does he start?
He starts by accepting Parmenides' initial setup. If anything exists, it must be either being, not being, or maybe both.
Right, the basic options.
Then, just like Parmenides, he quickly dismisses not being using Parmenidean logic. If not being existed, it would have to simultaneously be because it exists, and not be by definition, which is a contradiction. You can't talk about nothing as if it were something.
Standard Eleatic move so far.
Exactly. But then comes the twist. He turns these weapons, this unyielding logic, on being itself. He argues, okay, let's say being exists. Is it eternal or generated? Is it one or many? And then he shows how each alternative leads to an impossible conclusion using Parmenides' style of argument.
Can you give an example, like the eternal generated one?
Sure. Parmenides argued being must be eternal. Gorgias might counter, roughly, like this. Okay, if being is eternal, it must be without limit, right? Because having a limit implies a beginning or end, which contradicts eternity.
Makes sense.
But, Gorgias continues, if it's without limit, it must be nowhere. Because to be somewhere means you're contained within boundaries, located in a defined space. An infinite thing isn't in space.
Uh-huh.
And if it's nowhere, Gorgias concludes, well, then it simply does not exist. So following the logic, an eternal being becomes a non-existent being. Boom, paradox.
Wow. He uses the logic to tie it in knots.
Precisely. And he applies similar deconstructions to the other attributes. If being is one, it must have size, right? Even a single point has a location. But if it has size, it must be divisible, which means it's not truly one.
And if it's many?
If it's many, it must be a composite of ones. But since he's just argued that the concept of one is problematic and doesn't hold up, then neither can the many.
So what's the point of all this logical gymnastics? Is he just trying to be clever?
It's clever, certainly, but the implication is profound. Gorgias's ultimate target here isn't necessarily reality itself, but the linguistic and logical foundations of Eleatic metaphysics. He's exposing what scholars call the deep semantic ambiguity of the verb to be einai.
The ambiguity of is.
Yeah, to be can mean to exist or to be identical to or to have a certain property. Parmenides kind of blurred these meanings. Gorgias exploits this equivocation. He shows that Parmenides' rigorous definition of being, based on this ambiguous word, actually leads to its own logical impossibility. He collapses the whole being not being distinction by showing its linguistic basis is shaky.
So the first thesis isn't nothing exists, but maybe Parmenides' being doesn't exist coherently.
That's a much better way to put it. The concept itself collapses under logical scrutiny.
Okay, mind-blowing. So if nothing exists in that specific philosophical sense, then Gorgias' second thesis follows quite naturally. Even if something exists, it cannot be known.
Exactly. This is a direct shot at Parmenides' cornerstone. Thought and being are the same. Parmenides thought pure reason gave us a direct line to truth. Gorgias says, nope, that bridge is out.
How does he argue this one? More logic chopping.
Actually, this one is devastatingly simple. He severs the link with a straightforward empirical appeal. An appeal to common sense, really.
Which is?
He just points out that the contents of our minds are clearly not the same as external reality. We can easily think of things that don't actually exist out there.
Like what?
He gives examples. We can imagine a chariot racing on the sea, or a winged man.
Yeah.
We can think of unicorns, dragons, future events that never happen. These things exist in our thoughts, but not necessarily out there.
Right. And the reverse.
The reverse is also true. We can't assume that everything that does exist is constantly being thought of by someone. The universe existed long before us. Vast parts of it are unknown. So Gorgias concludes there's just no necessary link, no guaranteed connection between thought and existence.
The mind's contents are just the mind's contents.
Exactly. And in this move, Gorgias radicalizes that Parmenidean divide between aletheia and doxa. He traps all human thinking firmly within the realm of doxa, opinion, or appearance. Parmenides tried to build that bridge, pure thought, reaching true being. Gorgias accepts the gap, but then just demolishes the bridge.
So there's no way to know if our thoughts match reality.
According to Gorgias, no. The mind has no reliable test, no objective criterion to distinguish a true representation of being from a complete fiction, a fantasy. All mental contents become mere appearances. Parmenides' way of truth is rendered permanently inaccessible.
The mind becomes what, like an enclosed chamber?
That's a perfect image. An enclosed chamber of images, thoughts, feelings, with no verifiable exit to the external world. We're each locked in our own subjective theater. So what does this mean for knowing anything? It means objective knowledge, as Parmenides wanted it, is fundamentally out of reach.
Which leads us straight to the chilling final thesis. Even if it can be known, it cannot be communicated.
The final nail in the coffin of objective truth, you might say.
He takes Parmenides' critique of mortal naming, that creating distinctions is error, and pushes it to the absolute extreme.
He does. He argues that language itself is the ultimate barrier, not a bridge. His argument hinges on a critical distinction: the object of our experience versus the medium we use to talk about it.
The medium being logos speech, words.
Right. And the medium is fundamentally different from the thing itself. Gorgias states it plainly. What we reveal to another is not an external substance, but is merely logos.
Okay, unpack that. Words aren't things.
Think about it. Our experiences are perceptibles. The vivid personal sensation of seeing the color red, hearing a specific musical note, feeling the texture of wood. These are sensory, qualitative, inherently private experiences. Words, on the other hand, are just sounds we hear or symbols we see. You can't communicate the direct experience of seeing red just by saying the word red. The word is a label, a symbol, but it's not the raw experience. That immediate qualitative feel is private, subjective, and ultimately untranslatable into a different sensory medium or into another person's mind.
So language can only ever point. It can never truly share the experience itself.
That's the core of it. Gorgias exposes language as this kind of self-referential system of symbols. Yes, it's generated by our experiences when we assign meanings within our own minds, but it just can't reproduce that exact same experience with all its richness and immediacy in someone else's consciousness.
It can't bridge the gap between minds.
Not reliably, let alone the massive gap between our minds and whatever external reality might be.
Yeah.
So Even if you could somehow grasp an objective truth, which Gorgias has already argued, you get the very act of trying to articulate it, to put it into logos, would inevitably distort it. It becomes a shadow, an echo.
We're trapped in the prison house of logos.
Aptly put, which raises that profound question. If language itself is a barrier, how can we truly connect? How can we share ideas objectively? It seems to leave us fundamentally isolated, relying on a tool that inherently separates us.
The radicalization of Heraclitus and the Encomium of Helen.
And that, listeners, is the sort of philosophical wreckage Gorgias leaves behind after dealing with Parmenides. No knowable being, no reliable communication. But he's not finished.
No, he still has Heraclitus to deal with.
Having demolished stable being, he now tackles Heraclitus's ordered flux. And this culminates in his famous Encomium of Helen, where we see this really profound, utterly radical shift in the concept of logos.
It's a crucial distinction, yes. Perhaps the most impactful part of his legacy, actually. Remember, for Heraclitus, the logos was divine, objective, rational, the underlying order of the cosmos itself.
Right, the hidden harmony, independent of us.
Exactly. But the logos that Gorgias praises in the Encomium is completely different. It's a purely human faculty. It's speech, specifically the art of persuasion pytho.
So it's not cosmic reason anymore.
Not at all.
Yeah.
This Gorgianic logos has zero anchor in metaphysics or divine order. Its power isn't measured by how well it matches some external truth. Its power is measured solely by its psychological and emotional effect on the listener's soul.
How does he make that clear?
He states it almost bluntly. He notes how in rhetorical contests, a speech written with art, but not spoken with truth, delights and persuades a large crowd.
Ah, so skill trumps truth and persuasion.
Precisely. It shows that persuasiveness and truth are not just separate, they're entirely disconnected variables. One doesn't need the other. In fact, a skillfully crafted lie can often be more persuasive than a clumsy truth.
That's unsettling.
It is, and the implication is huge. Gorgias isn't just saying rhetoric is powerful. He's saying that in the world, he's described a world without objective anchors. Rhetoric becomes the anchor. It's not about finding truth.
It's about creating the belief in truth.
Yes. Crafting conviction through words. He completely flips the script on what logos means from divine cosmic reason to a human, instrumental, and potentially manipulative force.
And if persuasion is all we have left to create order or agreement, Gorgias really elevates it, doesn't he? He calls logos a mighty master, Dudastos megas.
Dynastus megas, yes. A mighty tyrant almost. And this characterization is the direct political and social consequence of the metaphysical demolition he just performed on not being.
How so?
Well, if nothing truly exists in a knowable, communicable way, if we're all just adrift in this perilous and uncertain sea of opinion doxa, then what else is there? Persuasive speech emerges as the only force capable of creating consensus, imposing any kind of order, directing human action. There's nothing else reliable left.
Human logos fills the power vacuum left by the absent divine logos.
Perfectly put. And Gorgias vividly illustrates the overwhelming power of this new ruler. He compares its effects to raw physical force, baya, the potent influence of drugs, pharmaca, even magic incantations.
Do you think speech is that powerful, like drugs or magic?
He does. He's not just being poetic. He genuinely sees speech as having this almost supernatural ability to alter minds. This logos, he argues, doesn't just inform. It compels the soul that is persuaded. It molds the mind as it wishes.
Molds the mind.
Yes. It can manipulate the entire spectrum of human emotion. It can put a stop to fear, remove grief, create joy, and increase pity. It's a kind of psychological coercion, a mastery over the listener's inner world, achieved through the skillful crafting of words. Hypnotism of the soul, perhaps?
So it bypasses reason and goes straight for the emotions, the soul.
Largely, yes. It's not primarily about rational argument convincing the intellect. It's about psychological impact, creating emotional conviction. And here, Gorgias completes his radicalization of Heraclitus.
How does he finalize that?
He takes the Heraclitean world constant flux, human alienation from the logos, and he systematically removes its single stabilizing principle, that universal divine logos. Remember, Heraclitus still offered a hidden harmony and underlying order, even if we couldn't see it.
Right. Gorgias says that's gone too.
It's gone, forever out of reach for everyone. So what's left? A world of pure phenomenal flux, a chaotic swirl of competing, unstable opinions with no inherent objective order at all?
Chaos.
Essentially, yes. A Heraclitean chaos stripped of its divine anchor. And into this profound void, Gorgias inserts human logos as the new and the only ordering force. And this force, crucially, isn't rational in the Heraclitean sense. It's psychological, emotional, coercive.
So persuasion literally replaces cosmic law as the ordering principle.
In human affairs, yes. What becomes true or real for a community at any given moment is simply what they have been persuaded to believe. As Gorgias notes, the swiftness of thought makes our confidence in our opinion change. Beliefs are fluid, changeable by speech.
So the challenge isn't aligning with objective truth anymore.
No. The Heraclean challenge is gone. It's replaced by a Gorgianic contest of persuasive power. Who is the most skillful speaker? Who can command belief?
Knowledge isn't discovered, it's constructed, imposed.
Exactly. It's actively created and imposed by the speaker who wields logos most effectively. For the Sophists teaching rhetoric, this meant they were teaching the art of creating social reality itself. This radically redefines truth and knowledge, shifting it from the divine or objective realm squarely into the human-centric realm of influence and the power of words.
The philosophical foundation of rhetoric.
So let's try to bring this all together. Gorgias. He didn't just disagree with Parmenides and Heraclitus, he performed this really profound, methodical fulfillment of their own premises, didn't he? Pushing their ideas to the absolute limit.
That's precisely it. He looked at the philosophical landscape they created, saw the chasm Parmenides opened and the inaccessible logos of Heraclitus, and instead of trying to fix it, he essentially declared those features permanent. The void is real, the chasm is unbridgeable.
How did he use their own methods again, just to recap?
He took Parmenides' unyielding logic and skillfully turned it back on the concept of being itself, showing it dissolved into contradiction under its own rules. And simultaneously, he accepted Heraclitus' vision of flux and human alienation, but then took it to its godless conclusion by removing that stabilizing divine logos.
He emptied the cosmos of inherent meaning.
Pretty much, leaving only the shifting sands of human perception and persuasion. And by doing this, by systematically dismantling traditional metaphysics and epistemology, showing reality as unknowable and incommunicable. Gorgias provided this powerful philosophical justification for the sophistic turn.
Right, because if objective truth is off the table,
Then the only arena left for meaningful human action is the contingent world of appearance and opinion, doxa. And in that world, the most potent force isn't reason grasping being, it's speech. Human logos molding belief, shaping perception.
so rhetoric isn't just a tool anymore.
No, it's transformed. It becomes the very art of constructing momentary functional realities.
Yeah.
He wasn't just describing rhetoric's power, he was explaining why rhetoric had to be the supreme art in the kind of world he revealed.
And this radical reorientation, this complete upheaval, it must have sent shockwaves through Greek thought. It created a crisis, surely.
An enormous crisis.
Yeah.
It absolutely demanded a response. You can almost feel the intellectual panic.
Which leads us to
Plato. Gorgias's ideas presented such a fundamental challenge to the very possibility of truth and knowledge that Plato, arguably the most influential philosopher in the West, dedicated his entire career to answering him.
how did Plato respond?
Plato's monumental task was to try and reestablish a stable, transcendent reality, a realm of knowable truths. That's where his famous theory of forms comes in.
Ah, the forms, justice itself, beauty itself.
Exactly. These perfect, eternal, unchanging forms, existing independently of our senses, accessible only through pure reason. He was trying to build a new foundation, a new anchor for knowledge and ethics against what he saw as the corrosive power of Gorgianic logos, against a world where truth was just whatever you could persuade people of.
He was trying to rebuild the bridge Gorgias blew up.
In a way, yes. Trying to find a reliable path back to objective truth. Which, interestingly, raises that crucial question for us today, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What does this ancient debate, thousands of years old, tell us about our world? Our information-saturated, persuasion-filled world. Outro.
It's a question that definitely resonates maybe with a slightly unsettling force today, doesn't it? Gorgias's legacy really forces us to think hard about the immense power of words, not just to describe reality, but to actively shape it.
Mm-hmm. To construct the very frameworks through which we understand everything, our world, our politics, even ourselves.
It makes you wonder how much of what we take as truth is actually something we've just been expertly persuaded to believe.
Exactly. And think about it. In an age of just unprecedented information overload, where algorithms aren't just informing us, they're explicitly designed to persuade us.
Right.
And where conflicting narratives can be so skillfully crafted and amplified, are we, in many ways, living in a thoroughly Gorgianic world right now?
feels like it sometimes.
So what does it mean for you listening now to seek truth, to form your own informed opinions when truth can be so easily manufactured through communication, when the very structure of how we get information is often designed to sway us?
How do we distinguish between what is, if anything, objectively is, and what we are simply being persuaded to believe?
It's a challenge as old as philosophy itself, but it feels incredibly urgent now, doesn't it? Perhaps the biggest lesson from Gorgias isn't to despair about truth, but maybe to be eternally vigilant. Vigilant about the power of logos and vigilant about its masters.
The profound thought to leave us with. Thank you for joining us on this episode of AI History of Western Philosophy. We hope this exploration of Gorgias has given you plenty to consider about truth, knowledge, and the enduring power of human persuasion. You can find links to the original sources we touched upon in the show notes. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring.